I'll answer that question indirectly. I'm not sure how much your audience will appreciate the comparison I'm going to make because it's from another era. The leader of the Chinese Revolution was a person named Mao Zedong. And Mao Zedong was clearly steeped in Chinese history, Chinese literature. He was Chinese with every fiber of his being. And when he died, 1976, a book was written, I still remember, even though it's a half century later, more than a half century later, or half century later. A book was written, was called Mao Zedong in the Scales of History. And there were several chapters by various experts. So it was Mao Zedong as a military tactician, Mao Zedong as an economist, Mao Zedong as this and that. And then there was one chapter called Mao Zedong as a Chinese. Mao Zedong as a Chinese. And the author of that chapter began by saying, this is the most ridiculous question. His whole being was Chinese. You can't separate the fact of his person from the fact of him being Chinese. And I would say that's a version of my own person. I grew up in a home which was shrouded in the memory of my parents' martyrdom. And I have to say, even as I'm coming to the end of my life, there's not a day that passes when I don't think not only of what happened to my parents and the extermination of every member of their family on both sides. I never had any grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, nothing. Everybody was exterminated, except my mother on her side and my father on his side. There are two thoughts which simultaneously are they always shadow me and haunt me. One is what happened, and two is my imaginative incapacity to believe that it happened to my parents. If I read it in a book about anybody else but my parents, at some level I could grasp it. But I knew my parents in their ordinariness, with all of the commonplaces of being a human being. And I could never situate that person in front of me, cooking on the stove, coming home from work, sitting at the dinner table, telling a joke, getting into an argument. I could never conceive that very same person is the one who I read about in this book who passed through that experience. So, as I said, it was a contradictory reality that haunted me, knowing they did pass through it and never being able to conceive that they passed through it.